Hello viewers, as you can see, the title of today's program is Common Errors in English. It is in fact a grammar lesson, but a grammar lesson of a different kind, in the sense that today I shall be talking to you about different categories of errors that we make as learners of English. Also, I will try to put the errors into certain categories. Rather than tell you the rules of grammar, I will try to show you through sentences how we make mistakes and in what ways we may correct them. You must be careful to look at the examples, because it is from these examples that we will learn how to correct ourselves. Let us begin with the most common error that we all make, which is in agreement. What is agreement? Agreement is also called concord. You need not worry yourselves about these terms. What we need to know is whether the noun and the verb are matched, whether the noun matches the verb. Let us take some examples. As I said, we have to look for examples. Let us look at examples. Birds fly. You will notice that the noun here is in the plural form, birds fly. But the moment we change the sentence and make it a bird or a singular, we change the verb to a different form. We say a bird flies. This agreement between the noun and the verb, is called concord. And it is here that most learners of English in India, make a lot of mistakes. For example, let us take another sentence. They was the first people to enter. Is this correct? No. This is an incorrect sentence because we do not use was for the noun they. Instead, it should be they were the first people to enter. This kind of error is known as the error of agreement or the error of concord or the error of subject and verb or noun and verb. The noun can also be called the subject. So, we could also call this agreement between the subject and the verb. The subject and the verb should always agree. Let us look at some more examples of agreement and concord. He don't have a pen. Is this correct? No, because again he should take the verb does not. Don't is incorrect, does not is correct. He does not have a pen. I have taken sentences of 2-3 different kinds. Let us take another sentence. Dogs and cats. In a sentence like this one, which I am going to read to you now, dogs and cats play together nicely. Dogs and cats play together nicely. Dogs and cats play together nicely. In this sentence, play matches the two nouns dogs and cats, play. But if we make it just a dog, if we say a dog, the sentence would change to, the verb would change to a dog plays with a ball. This is where most learners make mistakes. A dog plays. Notice how the form changes when the noun is in the singular and in the plural. Often it is not very simple to match the noun with the verb. Let us look at this sentence here now. A sentence like this is much more difficult because we have to see which word we have to match the verb with. There are several reasons why you should not go to Mumbai just now. There are several reasons why you should not go to Mumbai. You should not go to Mumbai just now. Is it right to use are here? You may wonder. Are is used because it matches reasons. Reasons is in plural and are also matches the noun reasons. In sentences of this kind, which are slightly longer, it becomes much more complicated to use to match the noun with the verb, or concord becomes so much more difficult. Let us turn now to another type of error which Indian students often make. The error we make is with negatives or the use of double negatives. As you can see, the type of error, the category of error itself is called double negatives. When we say we do not have no money, we do not have no money, in fact it functions as a positive because you have two negatives and both these are not really required. We do not have no money or I will return back. Can you guess why this is not right? It is because return itself suggests coming back and back is not required. I will return is sufficient. So, the back is actually redundant there. In this case too, don't carries the negative connotation and no is not required. If we say I do not have money, it conveys the idea much more clearly than it would if you say the two things which will actually make a positive sentence. You may wonder why I am emphasizing these errors so much. The reason is that though very often in speech we do manage without having to correct ourselves or we manage to convey the meaning, very often we do it by other things. We either convey it by actions, by gestures, or we talk to friends in abbreviated forms. We manage to convey the thought, the idea quite clearly. It really conveys, it creates a rather bad impression if we are not able to speak correctly, which is why I think we have to be careful about the errors in English. Apart from the fact that we do want to perfect ourselves, we do want to improve upon our ability to speak the language. Let us look at some other categories of errors now. Another area where we make a lot of mistakes is in the framing of questions. The reason perhaps is that very often we can manage by just saying, huh, isn't it so? Is that right? We can probably manage with a lot of abbreviations without really having to put the question in its correct form. Under questions, we have a form of questioning which is called the use of the question tag. Question tag. As the word tag suggests, tag really is something which is added on. Look at a question like this. You are a student, aren't you? This part of the question is known as the question tag. Very often we make a mistake in framing the question tag because we feel that the form isn't it can be used with every question. Isn't it? We use this form with every question, whereas actually it cannot be used everywhere. You can notice that are here has been picked up in the question tag, made into a negative, and then the question tag has been framed. You should have noticed that it is not here in the negative form, but transforms itself into the negative only in the question tag. Let us take another example. This is a book. What should we do here? How do we change it? This time we pick up the is and it becomes isn't it. In both these questions, you would have found that the statement is in the positive form and that question tag is in the negative form. Let us look at another form of question tags where the sentence is in the negative and the tag comes in the positive form. You don't have my pen, do you? You don't have my pen, do you? You can see that the statement is in the negative form using don't, and from the same part of the sentence we take the question tag, we frame the question tag using the do from the don't here, it transforms into a positive form and we say do you. This is called the usage of the question tag, and we have to be very careful not to uniformly use isn't it, because we must look at the sentence proper, see which verb has been used there and then use it to form the question tag, and not forget to put in the question mark at the end of the sentence. One of the first areas of grammar you must have learnt about in school and college must have been articles, the use of articles. Though articles is a category of where we tend to make errors, I think we need to look carefully at not just the rules about articles, but also about what we do when we use the articles. For instance, one of the first things we do, I think, when we use articles is to select an article, to select from among the three types of articles that we have. We have a, an and the. What we do is we select one of the three and we insert it into a sentence, or we use it in some sentence. Often we also have to make a choice, which means select on choice, choice about the use of the article, choice of placing the article. Where do we place the article? Where do we have to put it into a sentence? Where exactly does it belong in the sentence? And a third, I think, item that we need to remember when we use articles is whether the article is required or not. So we have to decide, we have to take a decision about using the article at all. Maybe there are places where we don't need the article. Maybe there are places where we need the article. So we have to take a decision about use of the article itself, whether we need to put in an article or not. So what we do is we select one of the three, we decide where to place it, and we also decide whether it is required or not. And I think these three things are what help us to use articles. Let us look at some sentences. Instead of just telling you about them, let me show you this in a few sentences. Let us take the selection of the article. The Taj Mahal is in Agra. Here, what we have done is we have selected one of the three articles. In the selection of these two articles, a and an, you must have been told that a comes in where there is no vowel sound or where there is a consonant, and an comes in before a vowel. What we have not learnt very carefully, I think, in our schools and colleges long ago is that it is not just the vowel or the consonant alone, but the vowel sound or the vowel or the consonant sound which makes the difference. For instance, when we say, I have an umbrella, I have an umbrella, the reason why an comes in here, or the selection of an here, is because of the sound of the first letter of the word umbrella, which is a is the sound which you have heard. But if this u the letter U represents another sound which is more like a consonant. For example, if we say union, this is a students' union. Here it is because of the consonant, but even if we said a union, though the letter is U, we use a here because the word union is pronounced as union but not union. The sound is not the sound of a vowel, it is the sound of a consonant. What this means is that we should be very careful about the sound of the word which follows the article a or an, which is more important actually than merely looking at the letter. From our school and college days, early college days, we may have learnt that it is the vowel, it is only the vowel letter which counts, which tells us about which article to use. In this case, however, as we have seen, it is not just the vowel letter which decides or determines which article we have to use. It is the sound of the word, the sound of this word which will help us to decide about the article. Let us now look at the point about the choice of placing the article. As we said just now, we are looking at the errors we make while using articles. Now let us turn to the choice of placing the article. Where exactly should the article be placed in a sentence? Look at these sentences which I have written here for you. Isn't it time we made a move? He is always thinking about the past. Have you spotted the articles in these two sentences? Yes, they are here, a and the. Isn't it time we made a move? Is it correct to use a sentence like this? You may wonder. Isn't it time we made move? Sometimes you may find a sentence without this article or with isn't it a time we made move. Can the a be written here? Do you think it is right? No, it is not possible. There are certain decisions which we have to make about placing the article. Where exactly should the article come? There are some rules which I could give you, but I think it is always advisable to use a lot of language, to read a lot of books, to read a lot, to practice a lot in order to learn these things, because it is not always possible to give an unlimited number of rules. It is not always possible to give you the rules for all the sentences in the language. Look at this sentence now. He is always thinking about the past. He is always thinking about the past. Do you think past is required here before past? Can we really write the sentence without the reference to past by the determiner, the article here? He is always thinking about past. It does not sound right, it is not correct if we do not use the here. Certain decisions have been taken in order to place the articles here and here. Therefore, placing of the article is also important. Let us look at an example for the decision about using the article at all. Can the article be left out sometimes? Is it necessary to use it at all, or can we do away with it completely? Let us look at some sentences for this. You must already be familiar with the rules of using articles which you learnt in school. Let us try to remember them once again. You must have heard, or you must have studied some time back, that a proper noun does not always take an article, or a proper noun does not need an article in front of it. For example, if you want to say that you are reading a book by Agatha Christie, you would say, I am reading an Agatha Christie. Is this correct? You may wonder. Can we say I am reading an Agatha Christie? Why is this article used here? A decision has been taken about using the article an, because the person saying this sentence, the person writing or saying this sentence, speaking this sentence, wants to say that he or she is reading a book by Agatha Christie, and the sentence indicates that I am reading an Agatha Christie, or you could say I am reading a book by Agatha Christie. Let us look at proper nouns where articles are left out. He is playing, he is listening to. Ravi Shankar. Here is the name of a musician and he is listening to Ravi Shankar. Does not, it could mean of course that he is simply listening to somebody called Ravi Shankar, but here the sentence indicates that he is listening to music by Ravi Shankar. Let us now turn to another item or another category of error. We often make mistakes in the use of degrees of comparison. Let us look at the degrees of comparison. Let us take an example. We have, for example, a word like good, and in comparing we use the expression better. Finally, the third degree of comparison is best. Good, better, best. We often make a mistake here where using better and best. We should be careful to use better only when two things are being compared. For example, in a sentence like this, Ramu is better than Gopal at caroms. Here, better indicates that a comparison is being made between two people, between two persons, Ramu and Gopal. When we move to the word best, it indicates that we have come to the third degree of comparison where there is no comparison really being made between two people, it is actually between one person and all the others. So, we should say something like this, Ramu is the best player which indicates that he is right at the top and the others are well below him. So, we could say, if we are using all the three forms of comparison, we could say Ramu is good at caroms. In the first form we would say Ramu is good at caroms, Ramu is better than Gopal at caroms, and finally Ramu is the best player of caroms, which indicates that we have moved from his ability in the first stage to a comparison of that ability with somebody else, and finally the comparison really goes to the highest possible limit because he said he is the best player, which means that there is no other player as good as him. We often confuse these two. We say he is the best than Gopal or Ramu is best than Gopal. Notice that than here also gives us a suggestion or tells us that some kind of comparison is being made between two persons or between two things. We have been talking to you about errors in grammar, about mistakes which we make in our speech and writing. Finally, let me come to an important area of error, that is prepositions. I have written up here on the board a sentence which relates to a preposition of place. The duster is on the table. In this sentence, you all know that the preposition on tells us the relationship between the duster and the table. We know that the duster is placed on the table. You also must be familiar with other prepositions of this kind, in, on, under, above. For example, the fan is on the roof or the box is under the table. We could use all these sentences to show relationships between nouns. But more importantly, we tend to make errors with prepositions which are combined with verbs where there are no rules as such. In fact, for prepositions completely there are no rules. It is very difficult for us to specify which can be used where, unless of course we go to semantics, which means the meaning of the sentence. We look for the meaning of the sentence and then we decide where the or which preposition should be used in which place. This is a very important hint which I have given you now. Very often we need to look more for the meaning than to the structure to indicate which particular preposition is to be used. But as I was saying, let us go back to the idea about the verb preposition combination. We have verb preposition combinations, and actually this is called the phrasal verb. Or the verb preposition combination. Let us take some simple examples. We say, for example, look into. It is an idiomatic expression. When you say look into, it indicates that you will examine or look at, I will look into the matter. When you say look up to, you would say, for example, in a sentence like this, we look up to our teachers, we look up to our elders. It means that you respect them. So, you see that each word does not have a meaning in itself. It is by the combination of the words that the meaning is derived from this expression. Such expressions are called phrasal verbs, or it is a verb preposition combination that gives you the meaning of the expression. It is here again that we tend to make a lot of errors, and we should be careful to study a lot of examples and try and understand how to practice, master these expressions. I will give you a few sentences where we tend to go wrong. For example, regardless, regardless of, or with regard to, with regard to, regardless of, with regard to. Notice how these expressions tend to hold together, and it is only by practice or by a lot of reading, by listening to a lot of spoken English, that we can master these expressions. It is not always possible to merely learn them or memorize them and remember them and try to remember them. It is only by seeing how they are used, by using them and making them part of our own language, that we can master such expressions. In this lesson, we have discussed different categories of grammatical errors. We have tried to touch upon very briefly different types of errors. In future lessons, we will be taking up each of these for more detailed examination and discussion. We hope you have learnt from these lessons how we tend to make errors in our speech and writing, and how we can really avoid making such mistakes in our future practices.